Oh, there we go. Konbanwa Yokoso. Oh, good evening, everyone, and welcome along to League of Europe. We are here tonight for F1 22 action. It is Season 9, it's Division 1, it is Round 3 of the Championship as we take in the Japanese Grand Prix. We are back, I think, for the first time since Season 7 for the Japanese Grand Prix from the Suzuka International Circuit. And my name, of course, is James Head. I'm going to be taking to the stream as always, and joining me in the commentary box, Konbanwa Yokoso, to Mr. Mark Aldridge. Mark, how you doing?
Konnichiwa. Konnichiwa indeed. That is the limit of my Japanese. But I did study a module of it at university, believe it or not. Japanese history around the Shogunate era. But I turned up hungover most times, and if I turned up at all. So I don't really know much about it, really, if I'm being honest. I know a bit about this track, because it's a great track. But so I'm looking... This is a really fun one. We'll be able to see who's on pad and who's on wheel very clearly, because pad users pretty much universally hate this, except Rocco, oddly. He quite likes it.
Yeah, Rocco normally likes this track, but then again, he was referred to as almost Osama bin Rocco last week because of his actions out on track in China. So hopefully he has learned from his Asian antics last week in China, and hopefully he is going to be on his best behaviour here tonight for the Japanese Grand Prix. We have got the standings for you this week as well. We didn't have them last week, but Jensen leads the way on 44 points. Selly in second on 35. Of course, Jensen took the win. His first win, of course, since Austria in Season 7. So very good from Jensen's perspective to take that win. Second place last week was Alp. Third place last week as well. In terms of the points anyways, Yildirim certainly got a third place last week in the feature race, and Izzat also performed very well as well. He got 19 points in total, but Jensen leading the way on 44 points. Sully there in second on 35, Campbell third on 33, Izzat in fourth on 29, Alp in fifth on 27, Pease in sixth on 22, then Nathan and Yildirim tied for seventh on 15 points, Rocco in ninth on 10, along with Jekyll also on 10 points as well. Verstappen, Dari, Wouter, Gary, Rick, top 15, Slash, Killer, who's not here tonight, and Matthias have all picked up points so far this season. And Mark, obviously, Jensen came back to absolute form last week in China, took the feature race win. Of course, he was very well up there as well in the sprint race. I think he qualified fourth, if I'm not mistaken, in the sprint, or finished fourth, I should say, in the sprint race. And Jensen leading the championship. Not really a sight that I even thought would be possible 2 rounds into the season.
I don't know. I did have a little. I have to look back at my predictions that I kind of made with Campbell. I think he was one I kind of thought might be up there, but there's a lot of drivers here that perhaps maybe more favoured. I don't know, but no, it's obviously very early days. We've had 2 very interesting tracks as well. We've had. China and Silverstone are very different, and Japan. I don't think you could have 3 more different tracks like for driving styles. So I think it's still going to filter out a bit, but this might be an opportunity for certain specialists because this track does attract them.
Oh, have I lost you?
I hope not.
No, you were saying something and then just cut out all of a sudden.
Oh, apologies. No, I don't know if everyone could hear, but no, it's a specialist track, and kind of Silverstone to a degree. I mean, Silverstone's kind of I'd say it's a basic track. China's definitely a specialist track. It's still there's a lot to shake out, so I wouldn't surprise we see some surprising people up there. So I put it to you this week. I don't know if you've seen, but I actually asked Rocco to predict. The top 3, and for him to predict where Gary Donegan was going to come, QVR Gary. So he's already made his predictions. I can run through those with you, which I'm sure will be quite intriguing to a few people that know the backstory of last week with him and Gary's incident and the licence points. He's predicted Alp to come first, Jensen second, Campbell third, with Gary in P14. So seems like that one's not too settled. So over to you. What's your top three, and where is Gary going to come this evening?
I am going to go Selly for the win, Alp for second, and for third, I'm going to go for Campbell. It's a bit of a certain top three, I hope. But Gary, I think, is going to finish in 8th position.
Wow, okay. So Selly, Alp, and Campbell. I am going to go...
Oh my god! No! Oh,
wow!
no! This is a turn up for the books. Maybe I will change my prediction, I think, because it's full wet conditions.
Right, I'm going to make a prediction, but you are free to, because I think that's only fair. I'm going to go Gary 10th now. I was going to put him higher. I wasn't going to predict this person for a podium, but I am now, because I know that he's a bit of a rain specialist, which is Rickarich. He's very, very adept in wet weather. Now, I don't know what the conditions are in the race, but I'm going to throw that one in there as a little kind of sideball. Gary now 10th. I was going to put him 6th, actually, but no, now that I've seen the rain, no chance.
It is very wet. It's a lichen typhoon weather, I think we can call it here, certainly in Japan. Of course, the last time the Grand Prix, I think, was cancelled because of a typhoon was, if I'm not mistaken, 2014, where qualifying got put on for the same day as the race, and obviously we knew what happened there with Jules Bianchi's horrible crash through the Dunlop curve as well, eventually claiming his life, so always going to be in our thoughts as, of course, we come to Japan here tonight. Jensen, though, is the first man out on track, and is going to be treating this with a pinch of salt, I'm absolutely sure. And already nearly goes for a spin just before the Dunlop curb, and you do not want to put the throttle down, certainly in this qualifying session. But I am going to change my top three. I'm going to go Campbell for the win now. He's normally a wet weather specialist, so I'm going to go Campbell for the win. For second, I'm going to go for Selly, so I think it's going to be a Ferrari Mercedes 1-2. And then in third, I am going to go for... You know what? If he's up there and he's normally good in wet conditions, Yilbreen for third.
Ooh. Okay. I don't know tons about everyone's wet pace. I know Rick's all right, and Rick's probably a back marker in this field, but he's got a bit of ability. I'd love to know if anyone is in that's listening in D1. I'm sure they're not, because they're all in their parties sweating away. What's the weather like for the race? Because this is super intriguing.
I am actually going to ask that in the Discord, so I'm going to try and get that for you. Wouter and Al might be able to reply to us. Rocco, by the way, has got a qualifying ban. He is out on track. He will go for a setup. I'm absolutely sure. He'll put a setup on, and obviously he'll come into the pit lane. He picked up license points as a result of that collision with Gary. As we're going to ride on board with Sally through the final corner on the run to the line. No bump, of course, through the final corner now, so it shouldn't catch people out. But Sally now, the Austrian, on the run down in towards turn number 1, looking to put away his doldrums of last week. Not if he does that coming through turn number 1, and already has an invalidated lap on the outside curb through turn number 1. Jensen not faring better, actually, coming through the right hander of turn number 1 and 2, then through the left hander of the Senaresses through 3 through 4. Eventually, and through turn number 5. Normally used to seeing 127s, 128s. You're not going to get that around here in these conditions. It's going to be about 15 to 20 seconds off the pace, anywhere in that ballpark, as Jensen really feathers the throttle coming through the Dunlop curve, already fighting the car, and it's a 38.5 in the first sector from Jensen, already 6 seconds off. Already runs right through Degler 1, actually controls it through Degler 2, but this is treacherous conditions in qualifying, certainly not what the drivers would have wanted as Jensen reaches the hairpin.
Yeah, absolutely, and this is one of the tracks that does affect lap time, some of the harshest with wet conditions, because there's a lot of moves like here, you know, these where it kind of meanders, where there's a lot of flat out bits like 130R. And Rocco has a quali ban. Yeah. But there's a lot here where you have to lift off, you have to brake.
Oh, Jensen's in the wall! Jensen in the wall, and that is literally, I think what you were about to say there is you've got to literally feather the throttle through the corners just to get a bit of exit. Jensen feathered the throttle, got caught on the outside curb, spun into the wall, and Jensen already out the session. Also an Alfa Romeo, I think, spun through turn number 1. I noticed that might have been either Rick or Jay Cole, one of the two that is furthest on. Alp we've just picked on board, he's just starting up on his lap, but everyone is finding the conditions very treacherous indeed. A 43.8 that would have been from Selly. He manages turn 1 nicely through turn number 2 now, but Selly, 43.8 would have been the benchmark time, and we are already, as I say, about 15 seconds off the pace compared to dry conditions around here.
Yeah, it's incredible. As Campbell comes over the line for a 43.8, I've no idea if that's any good. I'll be completely honest. It seems, I think that's on the slower end. I think there might have been a mistake in there, but these guys probably weren't anticipating full wet conditions, to be fair, so we might not see the peak of their ability.
Yeah, definitely not. We should see it towards the end. Yildirim, by the way, goes quickest. I did say potentially wet weather specialist, and so far so good from my predictions, at least for 2 people. Gary, by the way, is in 5th there as well, 46.1. I am still going to keep him in 8th position, by the way, for my prediction with Gary, who is currently in 6th in this qualifying session. Nathan just starting up on another lap. Sally is coming to the middle sector. We have got cars now coming to the line as well. Dari there going 7th, ahead of Pease there, who's just gone down into 8th position. But Yildirim out on top. Campbell in 2nd, is out in 3rd. Everyone will go for multiple runs. I'm absolutely certain of that. Obviously, Rocco and Jensen already at the session, so they can't. Sally, though, is going for multiple run. He's coming up the hill and towards 130R, which is the fastest corner normally, flat out around here. But you have to break in the full weather wet conditions, as it's purple in the middle sector, and Sally already looking to go, maybe around the 142 mark potentially with this lap. Coming through the final corners, feathering the throttle very gingerly out the final corner. On the run to the line, it is going to be 142 from Sally to 142.6. Goes 4 tenths clear of Yildirim. Yildirim is 5 tenths down on the first sector, so he might be going backing off his lap and then going for another lap potentially. Alp coming through the first sector split. Campbell through the first sector as well, actually through the middle sector, is 2 tenths up, coming in toward the Casio Triangle.
Yeah, looking like a lot more tidy. I've just been riding on board with him. He's going to come over the line. I don't think it's going to be enough to... Ooh, a bit of a tank slapper. And yeah, that cost him some time, but he does jump out. So, you know, not bad. One thing that I'm really intrigued by is Selly and Alp tend to run lower wings. Now there is a bit of a setup differentiation here in the dry. I've seen people run some really high wings, people run some really skinny ones, and I think what's really interesting is that with the wet qualifying, that I would assume would affect Selly and Alp more, but Selly perhaps has changed his setup because. The last thing you want to do at Japan is not really an overtaking heavy circuit, it's be stuck in the midfield with your paces at the front. Yeah, definitely. So Alp has certainly got a really good setup on because he was perfect coming through out of spoon curve on the run now down in towards 130R, and he's 4.5 tenths up. It was purple out of the first sector, not purple in the middle sector though, but Alp is looking to go maybe ahead of Yildirim potentially with this lap as he now faces the Casio Triangle through 16, through 17, then to the right-hand turn number 18, gets more on the throttle than Selly does, and he has to really fight the car on the run to the line, and he goes 3rd in the end, just ahead there of Gladbach. Not at all too bad from Alp's perspective. The Turk there, or the Turk American I should say, goes there in 3rd, 43.2. Selly though out on top, Yildirim in 2nd, Alp in 3rd, and Gladbach out of the relegation zone it seems, certainly from his team's perspective. Gladbach there in 4th is doing a good job, Campbell there in 5th, and Campbell's actually on the run up towards 130. I think he might be down on his lap. Yeah, he's a 10th.5 down in the middle sector. Gary there in 6th as well, but many drivers haven't set a lap time just yet, including Packer, Wouter, Verstappen, Rick and J. Cole. Them are the 5 that haven't set a lap so far. Wouter though I think is about to end the lap. He's coming to that middle sector split and he's well off the pace. 24.9 in the middle sector, so he's going to go, if he's lucky. Gary is that sort of area I think with this lap. Yeah, it's really quite interesting. I was doing some practice earlier with a few of the QVR guys that were in this lobby, and I did say famous last words. Doesn't seem to rain as much here as it used to in the old games. And they all shouted at me in unison and said, "Don't dare!" And now, unfortunately, I think I may have cursed them, and I dare say they might be cursing my name in a party somewhere because this was always going to happen to at least one of us. And unfortunately, it's happened to D1. If you were right on board with Alp there, as I was, he had a moment exactly the same point, unless it was someone else. It was.
I was on board with Packer coming out of the Aston Martin actually through the middle sector. Darry's been disqualified. That is the Aston Martin. That is the wrong way round. He's had to sit tight and wait for was it Verstappen? No, it was Selly actually coming to that part of the track. Darry though has been disqualified for facing the wrong way, even though he's sideways on out of the final corner. So I don't get why he's been disqualified personally. But he's out of 19th. Luckily, off to the escape road, that barrier will magically make the car disappear. I'm absolutely sure it will magically open right in front of your eyes, and Darry's car will be taken off, literally there. But Sally out on top, Alpine second, Alp by the way, 42.6, third lap on that wet compound tyre, and now really beginning to get into grips with things. And Montana certainly said about his setups that they are very sketchy normally in the wet. So far, not that sketchy because he's only 200ths of a second off Sally.
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder if this is going to go in any way quicker. The conditions, when it's wet conditions in quali, sometimes it will change quite quickly. As Rick goes third, my little outside tip there doesn't surprise me, but it might surprise a few to see his name up there. If you looked at it in a vacuum, without seeing the weather, and you just saw the results, like final score at 4:45. It doesn't surprise me too much, but it'd be interesting. He will probably go backwards in this field in the dry, sorry to say.
I'm surprised the scores didn't actually surprise you at full time in the FA Cup matches, certainly because Sunderland drew against Fulham and we're in the 5th round for the first time in God knows how long of me being a Sunderland supporter, probably even before my time potentially. But yeah, as Campbell invalidated at the first sector, he was a 10th and a half up actually coming through the first sector, so he invalidates coming through there. Nathan is just off a lap, I think. He improved 9/10 of a second, 43.3 from him. Yildirim as well is on a lap. He's on a fresh set of wet compound tyre, his second run actually on this set of wet. Sally out on top though, Alpine second, Rick there in third. So far though, looking at the weather forecast, Verstappen says it looks dry, mostly, but there's a chance of rain at the end of the race, so perhaps the weather gods might be on the driver's side for the race, certainly, given by that. Yildirim through the middle sector, 24.4, he's 4.5 tenths down, so obviously his tyre degradation is going a little bit. Maybe it's because the track is getting a little bit easier, and maybe it's because the rain's getting a little bit easier out on track, but I hardly see that, honestly, coming through the Casio Triangle, as Yildirim is going to stay out and obviously try and go for another lap, and in fact, nearly does improve. 43.3 in the end from him. Gladbach there in 5th as well. He's coming through the final corner. I think he's just starting up on a run. And nobody on a lap. Campbell would have gone 4th with that lap. 43 flat from him. And invalidated, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's really interesting because you look at the top 10 and there's names everywhere, really. Obviously, Selly and Alp we expect to see up there, but the rest, a bit jumbled up for the rest of the field. I think it's quite clear Creco and Slash have probably done very limited, and probably Pease, very limited, if anything at all, wet practice, judging by those times.
Ren's in the comment section saying, keep an eye on Rick, keep an eye on this man here, Verstappen through the final corner on the run to the line, improving. This is his first run, actually on a compound tyre, first full wet run, I should say, that he's got valid, 43.8, so he's got a lot of time, obviously, to find on the likes of Selly and Alp, who are still out there on laps as well. Yildirim was purple out of the first sector, according to my screen, so that might be interesting. He's 400ths down, actually, out of the first sector, so clearly it's lying to me a little bit, unless he was purple in the first sector. But Rick there in third, Yildirim in fourth. Currently our underdogs for tonight in terms of predictions are doing very well indeed in qualifying. Not so much my race winner candidate down there in 7th position. Campbell might have actually put him underneath the bus potentially in terms of my prediction. Yildirim though, 23.8, he's 1.5 tenths up coming out the middle sector through 130R into the Casio Triangle. Sally, Alp, Rick top 3. Not really many improvements being found elsewhere, I don't think, as Yildirim is unfortunately invalidated coming through the Casio Triangle.
I have to say, this might be one of the ways to spice up this race, because there's not too many overtaking opportunities here. The straights don't tend to be long enough. No one tends to try and make a move into 130R. But because of this rain, people may have compromised setup slightly. I know for a fact there's a few that are running very skinny wings. And it wouldn't surprise me if someone like Campbell was as well.
Gary just has a right slide on coming out of the Casio Triangle. Pretty much getting like a slide on the dance floor on a Saturday night in Ireland. But there we are. Get down in 9th position. Don't want to put that image into anybody's head whatsoever. I personally haven't seen that either. I'm sure you guys haven't as well. But it will be very interesting side as Alp is just starting up another one. Selling and Validate at the middle sector. But still these two out on top, only 200ths of a second covering, but the rest of the field are covered by literally about a second and a half, I think, all the way down to 14. Jensen, Rocco, all the way out of the session. Rocco, of course, had that qualifying ban with Darry's disqualification. Doesn't start last, he starts in 18th position. Obviously, these guys will get a full choice of tyre as well. 3.5 minutes to go, though, in this session, and the rain is definitely not relenting in this qualifying session here in Japan. The first full wet qualifying I think I've seen, certainly, in maybe 2-3 seasons of LOE.
Yeah, it's a pretty rare occurrence. Normally it's inters or dry, but like I say, I think it's going to be interesting because I think there's going to be a few that around that 5th to 10th that may be running low wings, and they might come through the field a bit in the race. It might spice the race up, which I'm pretty happy about.
Alp, though, looking to try and climb to the top step of the podium, certainly in qualifying. Tried to get a mountain pun in there, but it really didn't work. Alp there in second. 2.5 tenths up there out of the first sector, so not actually too bad from Alp through the first sector split. He was up on Selly, so we'll wait and see what he is doing as well. Selly through that middle sector is just coming through that part of the track as well, as Alp now embarks on the spoon curve through the left-hander of the spoon curve at turn 13. Now on the run down until the 130, of course, at turn 15, which is the little kink here, and then down until 130 at turn 15. 18 corners, of course, around this track. They're about to embark on 16 and 17 at the Casio Triangle. 1.5 tenths up, though. He has lost time in the middle sector, has Alp, so may change something in the setup as he now comes through the final corner, right to the curb, very nicely indeed, very committed coming to the Casio Triangle, and Alp, I think, is going to go quickest with this lap to the line. He does, 42.4, found a big improvement in that final sector. Sally, though, going even quicker than him through the final corner. The Austrian comes on the run to the line, might go quickest, and he responds immediately, 42 flat, and he goes 4 tenths clear of Alp there in second. Rick there in third, I think, is just starting up on a run. Yeah, he is indeed starting up on a run. Nathan as well, Wout the same, Campbell the same as well, and actually Campbell coming through the Casio Triangle, yeah, he's just starting up on a run as well, but it's Selly out on top, Alp in second. I've got to be honest, Mark, that lap time could be hard to beat from Selly.
Almost certainly. Rick with a big error. It wouldn't surprise me if he backs off. I think he has backed off, so he's going to go around one more time. I tell you, there's only two people that are going to be happy other than Rick that Rick is in third, and that is Selly and Alp, because no disrespect to him, and he's a quick guy, but in this grid, you know, you can't see him living with Alp and Selly. And if he can create a bit of a truly train, these two might just bolt away from the field unless someone can overtake Rick. Wow, the Mario Kart Rainbow Road line there from Rick. Lives to fight another day, but cool, that is a sketchy section.
He does.
Degner 1 and Degner 2. Oof.
Does he have enough time to actually get another lap in? I can't see because the yellow flag's out in the middle sector. I think that's a Ferrari that's actually spun. And I have a feeling that might have been Campbell potentially coming through the middle sector. We'll see who it is on the right-hand side. It was Nathan, in fact. Nathan, the other QVR man. As Yildirim's actually invalidated on the Exeter Degner 2, which is weird place to invalidate. It has been done, though, before on this game. 20 seconds to go, though. Yildirim, I don't think, has got time to get in for another lap. No, he's going to be nowhere near to get another lap in. Rick is just, I think, going to scrape in for another lap. White has improved, and Sally improves again. 41.9. Talking about taking the ball, taking our eye off the ball. Sally there now goes 4 tenths quicker again than Alp. Alp there in second, 42.3, did improve as well, but Sally still out on top. Alp there in second, and now Sally, unless he improves on this final run, is probably going to get pole. Alp, unless he improves drastically, I think, on this lap, I don't think he's going to get anywhere close as Campbell goes third.
Slash.
Ooh. Alp purple in the first sector, though.
Yeah, lots of people coming through now. Nathan also coming through, but he's not on a very good lap. He's bottled that. Gary is improving quite significantly. He might find himself in the 42s here if he can have a very nice third sector. This could be huge for him. It could jump him up to even 4th or 5th.
Ooh.
It does.
Good lap from Gary. Goes fourth. Rick there in fifth. 10th and a half up through the first sector. Alp coming in towards Spoon Curve. Now, has he lost any time? He's certainly low on ERS, so he's got to try and feather this through very nicely indeed. Of course, you will gain more ERS on this track, in these conditions, as necessary compared to the dry. But Alp, I think, is flying here on this lap. Now coming in towards the middle sector split. He's 3/10 up. Purple in the middle sector. He's got to find another 10th of a second from somewhere. He was flawless, roughly, coming out of the Casio Triangle last time around. Needs to do the same here. Needs to try and improve. Alp through the final corner. Bit sketchy on the exit of the Casio Triangle. Bit sketchy on the bump on the right-hand side. Having to control the car on the run to the line. And he doesn't go close. 42.1 in the end. Sally, I think, by suffering, is out on top in pole. What is Rick doing? He's 5.5 up. Purple in the middle sector, so Rick could be coming in potentially for second here as the Alfa Romeo comes through the final corners, through the Casio Triangle, having to feather the throttle, much better though than Alp, coming through the final corner on the run to the line, and Rick goes third in the end, 42.3, a huge lap though from him, as we wait I think for Sally to retire in the pit lane. That's the end of a wet qualifying session here in Japan, and it's Sally out on top, Alp there in second, Rick there in third, and who would have thought of the former Division 1 man, being an F2 for quite a while, now making his first step up in full wet conditions in qualifying, best qualifying of the season from Rick, and he's there in third.
That is, I mean, it doesn't surprise me to a degree, but it does, you know, to be that high up. I'm really intrigued to know what his setup's like though, and like I say, this adds another wrinkle. He could end up being a bit of a truly train. No offence to him, he's quick on his day, but dry is very different to wet.
He can. All depends, obviously, on setup and, of course, on his tyres that he chooses and on his start as well that he will get. But it is the Austrian of Sally out on top from Alp in second, Rick there in third, Campbell there in fourth, Gary in the end in fifth. Might be going for that 8th position prediction that I said, certainly. Hildream there in sixth, Gladbach in seventh. The second covering the top 5 is very rare. You normally see much closer action than that. Pease, Nathan is at rounding off the top 10. The Mitre in 11th, Verstappen in 12th, Jekyll 13, Packer in 14, Slash there in 15, Creco in 16th. Jensen obviously crashed out early in the session. Rocco with a qualifying ban, and Dari getting disqualified, of course, at the end of the session. And Ren's saying as well in the chat, mentioning to you certainly in the chat, we were not wrong.
Absolutely. But now this is the interesting part where all these strategies and all, what kind of compromises do people make? I mean, that couldn't be more different. That's Japanese weather in a nutshell, I think. It's raining on Saturday and then magically we time warp 24 hours and 20 seconds, and it looks like the nicest day possible with the fun fair in the background, which I'm just having a little look at.
Yeah, with the it's got a name to it actually. I had a fact about it actually. Hang on, I'm gonna have a look at the what the wheel is actually called, because I think it's related to the Ferrari team, if I'm not mistaken. At Suzuka, they've got like a Ferrari Fun Fair, Funland, like theme park, I think, behind the circuit, and it is known as, now I'm trying to find it here, it is known as the circuit wheel, previously known as Jupiter, which is in relation of course to the planet Jupiter as well, but that is very interesting from that perspective. But it's known as the circuit wheel right now in Japan, known as the circuit wheel. Used to be, as I say, I think a Ferrari Fun Fair ride. Certainly that was mentioned in the past, but I think they might have got rid of the branding potentially in terms of that. Anyways, everyone, apart from Rocco, which I don't blame him to be honest, Osama Bin Rocco used to be, usually after his old tricks, he's there on the set of medium compound tyres. Everyone else, I think, on the best strategy, hards to mediums to the end of the race, simple one-stop strategy, hopefully no interruptions with safety cars or VSEs, but Selly really getting on with this formation lap.
He wants some heat in them. That's what he's doing. He's doing a full lap. He's just getting as much heat as he can possible. Shrewd. I'll tell you one thing though. It is an easy one stop, but tyre wear is very high here. It's probably one of the highest in the game for a one stop. Unless your pressures are higher, which I wouldn't recommend because temps are a big factor here. So there's loads of wrinkles to this. And I think what I find interesting with this in particular is that if there is a safety car, which I doubt there will be, it's D1, they know what they're doing, but there is a safety car at any point, probably around lap 5 to 8 to 9, let's say, Rocco might inherit the world, because the Hards will have to, they'll be stuck. They'll be absolutely stuck for strategy, whereas he has a very easy decision. So I hope it doesn't happen, because it means someone's race has ended, but don't rule it out, and I don't blame anyone at the back for trying something slightly different, really.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think, good from Rocco's perspective. He has, though, got the championship leader ahead of him. And there'll be something in his mind thinking, right, championship leader is ahead of me. I've got to get him off the race start. However, I don't want to ruin his championship lead, and I want to try and fend for myself as well. So he's got to have that certainly in his thinking going down in towards turn number 1, because all hell could break loose quite literally in towards turn number 1. It's all dependent, of course, who has dry setups, who has partly middle of the road, and who has wet setups as well. So that could come into play as well. But Sully out on top, out there alongside, and beautiful run down in towards turn 1. I've just turned the timing tower off. Look at that run down in towards turn 1, around a 250-metre run in towards turn number 1, down in towards corner number 1 here, and to the Suzuka International Circle. We'll take Alp's perspective from the start. 5 red lights now going out here in Japan for round number 3 of the championship, and already to lights out, away we go, and a bit of a stall there actually from the start from Sully, and the Ferrari breezes through, and I think that actually is Campbell who's got a really good start. Campbell through and he's into second, gets the job done. Somebody's forced off in the gravel there. I think there was an AlphaTauri off on the left-hand side. I'll get the timing tower up again just to see. It was Gladbach who got caught up in that. We've already got, I think, I thought we had a VSC, but we haven't. Sully leads the way. Campbell there in second. Yildirim there in third. It was Gladbach causing yellow flags through the first sector, which caused flags all throughout the track. Jensen already is round. The championship leader has got right side end plate damage. Maybe going side by side, I think either with Rocco or Dari. In the end, has got caught up. Right side end plate damage for Jensen. That is the worst possible start for the championship leader. On the flip side, though, the Mercedes lead the way. Sully leads the way from Campbell there in second. Yildirim there in third. In the end, Rick got absolutely thrown off the start as well, and Nathan trying to lunge it on Gary in towards the hairpin. Rocco's already made good ground as well. He's making true, maybe 3 positions here on the back of Packer, trying to get the job done. He's already made, I think, 4 positions gain at the race start, but Sully leads the way. Campbell in second, uneventful towards the front end. Back end, though, championship leader round and pretty much out of contention early on.
Yeah, absolutely. Something about these championship leaders. Sully had it last week, obviously with his internet issues, so bit of a poison chalice it seems at the moment, and they're going to need snookers to get back in this race.
Rocco's right on the back of Packer in towards 130R. Could be a risky move in towards the Casio Triangle. Might have to go all the way around the outside to think about this. He has got the tyres to do it. Might go around the outside. Now for the inside line out the Casio Triangle. Packer, the American, still alongside him. But Rocco gets the job done. Beautiful stuff by the Austrian winner from that season. He's through and he's into 13. Izzat's got a set sight as well on Verstappen running down the straight. Pulls alongside and the Singaporean is through on the Dutchman. He's through and he's into 10th position. Rides up on the curb just for good measure. Might have a bit of dirt in the front, but certainly got away with it as Jensen is into the pit lane after that right side end plate damage after that hit. I think with Dari rather than Rocco. Maybe I might be wrong with that. We'll have to see, of course, with the stewards afterwards. But Sully leads the way. Campbell in second. Yildirim in third. And looking at the position gains, Mark, Rocco 5 positions gain. Yildirim 3 positions gain. Campbell 2 positions gain. So far, so good. And my prediction, not looking too bad at all so far.
Yeah, you're looking pretty spot on. I want to say Izzat versus Verstappen there on the main straight was a perfect example of different wing choices. I think Verstappen is using a very stable high wing setup, and we've got to see a little bit of that from Izzat. But yeah, this is there's a long way to go, but you can kind of get an idea about kind of setups already, I think.
But look at Yildirim, he's 1.6 seconds behind Campbell. Campbell's obviously having to stick with Sully, and Sully, with a really quick formation up, already hunting down outside of a second, and Campbell is washed. Campbell's going nowhere quickly, unless Sully just backs him up. Rocco, by the way, is going to go side by side, nearly towards 130R, around the outside of J. Cole. J. Cole in the end is forced off wide off the curb. This could be dangerous from Rocco in the end. Doesn't want to risk it to the inside line of the Casio Triangle. In the end, gets actually caught on the curb himself, and Packer could come back at him, coming through the final corner, now on the run to the line once again. On lap 3, for the DRS actually doesn't get enabled until next lap around, but it's Sully that leads the way. Campbell there in second, Yildirim there in third. Very good start though from Sully. Already 1.5 seconds seconds clear of Campbell, both on the same ERS as well. Campbell's got about 3% more ERS than Selly. Yildirim has got 70%, actually 30% more than Campbell at this stage. But he's got Alp right on the back of him, and you do not want Alp right on the back of you, because Alp is certainly going to be there not to have a fun game. He is there to get the move done for P3.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing Rocco's got going for him as well is he's going to get a pretty meaty undercut. The hards are actually probably the most preferred choice of tyre in a very odd way. They feel good through the life of them, so it'll be interesting.
Thought Rocco was going to lunge it to the inside line. In fact, actually, J. Cole's gone deep on the outside, and now side by side, and Rocco in the end gets the job done. J. Cole was a bit off camber coming out of the corner, which might have attributed to the bit of contact there, but Rocco was alongside. I think J. Cole didn't realise he was there, to be honest, on rejoining. And Pease, I think, has had a moment coming through Spoon.
So did Rocco. J. Cole nearly went right into the back of him. Rocco managed to correct the spin, which is no easy feat on a pad round Spoon. And yeah, Rocco's pushing to the absolute limit here.
Yeah, and Rocco's certainly trying to cut his way through the field like a knife through butter coming out of Spoon, down in towards 130R. See, I got that one in as well. Rocco on the back of Verstappen, as Alp is going to chase down Yildirim on the run down towards turn 1. It's easy from Alp to the inside line, and the AlphaTauri through, and he's into P3, looking very, very good and very, very astute so far in this race. And Yildirim actually will suit him a little bit more because he's got more ERS. Alp has now got the pace. It's whether or not Yildirim can keep up. That is going to be the main thing, and if he can't, Alp is pretty much, I think, going to be on for P3 in this race, unless something very unfortunate happens to either of the top three. This looks like already we're beginning to see the sorting out of the order. We're already beginning to see who's running better wings compared to normal. Selly certainly, Campbell certainly, and Alp certainly, and Yildirim already 8 tenths behind, and he is struggling for pace once again. Normally quick in the second half of the race, Yildirim has just got to sit and suffer right now. At least, though, he's got Rick on the back of him, which I guess is going to be protecting because Gary's also behind, and Nathan, who was very quick, already trying to pull off on Gary. In the end, though, Yildirim there in 4th, Rick there in 5th, Nathan there in 7th on the back of Gary, and Nathan looking, I think, to try and get the move done sooner rather than later in the Ferrari.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's going to be interesting for this phase now, when the tyres, perhaps in a few more laps, but like I say, degradation is a big factor here. So if anyone is running slightly higher pressures, they'll probably have less as Rocco's. Just like I say, Verstappen's running high wings. Rocco's just made that look easy. I don't think Verstappen's overly bothered either. I think he's just thinking, you're on a different strat. You go ahead, and I'll try and come with you. Yeah,
and that'll suit Verstappen better as well, because he has got that DRS now to come back into. He's got more ERS than Rocco in this stage as well, so he's obviously going to come back at some point in the race. I would assume it's going to be from around lap 10, lap 11 onwards. That's normally when the mediums go off around here. The hards can easily make, what, 17, 18 laps I've seen make, and then set of mediums go on towards the end. Sadly, though, out on top, Campbell there in 2nd, Alp there in 3rd. Ivan Dopey, by the way, I'm just going to ignore that comment that's just been put in the comment section on the right-hand side of me. Terrible behaviour. Rocco, though, is on the back of his though, in the meantime. 10th and 11th better be sorted out potentially. But Rocco already making good ground. He had that qualifying ban. Qualifying ban what? Because he's already into 11th. He's already in the points. He's got Izzat now right in front of him. And this is good so far from Rocco. But at what expense? Because his tyres are obviously going to be going off.
Yeah, they start to only be... They're only really good for 8 or 9 laps. Max, really. And then you have to kind of extend them a bit purely because of the hards usage. So he's going to suffer a little bit at some point. But he seems to still be doing okay.
Yeah, definitely so. I'm Dopey, I think, also saying that Selly has checked out. Yeah, he has indeed. 2.3 seconds out in front. Campbell in 2nd has got no response. He's used ERS. Selly has used ERS as well. Selly is just an absolute god on this track. 2.4 seconds clear. Pulling away, I think, half a second consistently every single lap. Campbell 3.5 tenths down on his own personal best. And Selly is flying down the straight. He's getting 3 tenths alone down the straight. So clearly, Selly is working absolute wonders with the setup so far. Campbell in no man's land. Alp there in 3rd. These guys obviously, I think, need a safety car. Potentially just to spice things up. Just to get the action a bit closer together. But Selly flying out on track, leading the way. Campbell in 2nd, Alp in 3rd, and nobody has got a single response to this because this is Selly in F1 esports mode at this stage.
Yeah, this is rapid because to be half a second quicker than someone like Campbell is wild. I've noticed as well he's using his battery in the last 10%. Interesting strategy.
Yeah, it is an interesting strategy. And yeah, Campbell, obviously, as you mentioned there, I think you were saying 10% more in terms of ERS compared to Sally, and he has got that to use up, but to what expense? He can't use it up really because he's going to be going nowhere quickly. Alp is not really getting on him either. Yildirim's holding up a big Truly training behind. Rick's included in that as well in 5th, and Yildirim at the minute can't respond to Alp. So Alp, in no man's land, he's got more ERS than Campbell, double the amount of ERS than Campbell. Campbell has got more ERS than Sally, but to what expense? Because Sally is, again, pulling away another 0.3 of a second he's gained this lap around, and Sally leads the way onto lap 7 by 2.7 seconds. This honestly could be, quite literally, if there's no safety cars, there's no disruptions in this race, Sally, I think this could be potentially one of the most dominant performances I think we've ever seen in LOE of 9 seasons in Division 1. Sally, I think, is going to prove how dominant he is in this field around Japan, because this is absolutely extraordinary early on.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what is a shame? Is that there is one man that's also very good at this track, particularly in the wet. That's last season's champion, Montana. This could have been a hell of a battle, couldn't it, if we'd have managed to get them both on track at the same time.
Can we invite him back for next week, perhaps? I know he's in the comment section. I know he's watching. Can we invite him back for next week? Just to spice things up again? And he has got, obviously, if Montana does want to come back, he has obviously got a bit of a disadvantage to obviously try and gain on in terms of Sally as well. But Sally, so far, out on top, 3 seconds of the gap. This is looking extraordinary early on. And if he can keep those tyres in relatively good nick, he can get, I think, at least 16 laps out of those tyres, even if he's pushing quite hard on those. And he could potentially be by then 6, 7, 8 seconds, somewhere like that, potentially up the road. Unless there's a safety car, and unless things change quickly, this is already looking like a Sally domination here in Japan. And I'm sorry to say, Campbell is quick, but he's not that quick. And Alp actually is beginning to gain back on him. 1.2 seconds the gap now between 2nd and 3rd. So Alp has pulled out, I think, half a second over the last 2 laps. And if he gains another half a second, he will obviously be within DRS range, and he can use that up on the back of Campbell if he so requires. But Yildirim there in 4th. Nothing really happening so far in this race. J. Cole and Verstappen are going to look quite close in towards turn number 1. In the end, though, J. Cole with 35% of ERS is not going to get the job done on Verstappen even that far back. Jensen, by the way, still going, the championship leader, right down in 19th position. In theory, of course, him being out the points at this stage of the race, Sally would take the championship lead as it stands out on track, with Sally 2.8 seconds through Campbell in 2nd, Alp in 3rd. I get the impression that Sally made a mistake somewhere coming through the first sector, because the gap has just shortened slightly.
Yeah, I think I was right on board. He just had a slight moment. It's what I find interesting as well is that Alp's pace is actually very impressive too, and it's kind of been not as noticed, but 4 seconds is such a big gap.
Ooh. Nathan Gary's swap. Interesting. I'm not sure if Gary had a poor run coming out the hairpin. He wasn't even close actually coming into the hairpin. But Nathan's through on Gary and he's into 6th. Unless that's a QVR tactic, I wonder actually if it's because Gary's low on fuel. I think that might be why. He's having to lift and coast potentially. He's lift and coasted too much. And obviously, he's now down in 7th position. He's got Wouter on the back of him. Gary's in trouble here. He is on the brink of getting lost this position to Wouter. Wouter 11-8 has got more fuel than them. J. Cole's been overtaken, I think, by Packer. That's into the Casio Triangle, I think that has happened. Packer there through and he's into 13th. J. Cole in 14th as well. But Nathan through and he's into 6th. He, I think, unless there was team tactics there from the KVR boys, that was Nathan getting through on Gary, and Gary having to lift and coast because of his low fuel.
Yeah, I wouldn't even necessarily call it they may well be in the same party, but I think probably Gary's just thinking, if you go, you can push more, I can save more, and then we don't break the train. And it's working because Nathan is actually catching Rick. So yeah, it's probably, I think it's you know, mid-length racing expertise there.
Yeah, definitely so. Gap, by the way, for the lead. I'm not being concerning, but it's because Sally's saving up a lot of EOS now, which is why the gap has gone to 2.5 seconds. Sally is on 35% of EOS. He is lifting and coasting to his heart's content there in the lead of the race. Campbell, 8% of battery. He has got basically 4 times the amount of EOS as Campbell does at this stage. And he's not even breaking sweat while doing so. It's almost as if Montana is not actually talking to us in the comment section. It's almost as if he's out on track again. Because this is just remarkable from Sally. Whether or not the F1 cheats are coming out remains to be seen. But so far, this is just pure raw pace from Sally. I'm impressed. This man, potentially, this is a career-defining performance so far. As you see something?
Nathan lost it big time. He's lost so much time, and now Gary's going to go through on him. And that little plan.
Wouter as well. Look at Wouter. Wouter to the outside line. Oh my God, that was not going to fit through there. Could have went actually to the inside line and then risked it, but in the end, I think probably the best thing was done there. Just back off in the thoughts of the relentless man. Is still in 8th position. P's run on the back of these guys as well. But yeah, Nathan making that mistake out of the Casio Triangle. They are very deadly curbs coming out of there. And Gary now is going to have to do the same thing as he did 2 laps ago. Let Nathan back through and let Nathan catch back up.
Yeah, I don't think Nathan will be too keen now because he's not got any battery. He's probably thinking, actually, no, I'm all right. And then, if anything, it'd be interesting to know when the first stoppers come in because you can do it about lap 13. Maybe even lap 12. I wouldn't necessarily advise it, but because having fresh tyres again with the high degradation, particularly on the mediums, will be handy at the end of the race. So it's that real kind of choice between that undercut and being able to attack in the last few laps. And they'll all be thinking about it. They'll all be wondering what's the best play at this point. Yeah,
definitely. So Rocco, by the way, on that set of mediums has made absolutely no inroads at all on the rest of the field. Those mediums, as I would have thought with Rocco, have gone too hard too early, and he's sticking with his app, but he on his tyres should have ideally been through and on the back of P's by now. But he's there in 11, just trying to bide his time, and I think he'll be the first one to come in the pit lane. I'm not sure when it'll be. As Wouter's run on the back of Nathan coming out of the Casio Triangle. I think he made another mistake there, and Wouter now to the inside line, nearly getting forced on the grass to the inside line of turn number 1, and in the end it's not going to work out for somebody. Wouter though sticks his nose in, and the Williams coming through turn number 1, and in the end gets forced up on the curb. Aggressive defensive driving as Creco was retired in the pit lane. That's disappointing from his perspective. I'm not sure if he had a moment or if he's just got to go somewhere, but Nathan in the end holds 7, Wouter there in 8th. But was there any need to defend like that?
No, I'm never a fan of that personally. But you know, these guys are going to race hard. They're very quick. The margins are thin, but yeah, on Creco, I hope they take this the right way. I do feel like Creco and Darry might be a little bit over their head in this division at the moment, as we do have yellows.
It's AI coming out.
It is, yeah. Yeah, I just feel Creco and Darry they're very quick. You know, I used to race with them at some point, they've improved, but this might be a bit too much for them. And yeah, the races I've seen, they've been at the back a bit, so maybe that needs reevaluating. I don't know.
Yeah, and definitely so, I think, from Alex the G's perspective, because I know he got put up, I think, as a reserve to Division 1. Couldn't make it this week because he was too busy, I think, getting licence points potentially to focus on the NLR race and the IKR World Series that is going on. Yes, IKR apparently have a World Series, and apparently it's sponsored by Simulus Clothing as well. Just going to mention that because I saw it on Twitter. But still, when you sign up for a league, you've got to be committed, and Alex the G obviously been forced out to go for his team as Rocco is into the pit lane. He goes early onto a set of hard Compana tyres. Alex the G, he I think would be deserving of a full-time seat. Obviously if Darry and Creco do get re-evaluated, and even the likes of Gladbach as well. Gladbach / who necessarily haven't been as quick, not necessarily been, I would say, Division 1 pace. And again, I'm not trying to take it the wrong way with these guys, but in the grand scheme of things, you want to try and create from an admin's perspective, and from certainly a Larkin's perspective, as close as racing as possible out on track. But when you've got Sally dominating out in front, Campbell in second, Alpin third, and they're all strung out like a washing line, it is very difficult, certainly around this track, to try and get as close racing as possible. But I totally agree with you. I think from that perspective, as there's a yellow flag, it's Jensen, the championship leader. That's round coming through the S section of turn number 5 and 6. He's got the car back going again, though, on the mini-map. And Jensen, another one, unfortunately. He has these real glimmers of form where he is just absolutely dominant. Absolutely brilliant last week, of course, in China. This week, complete polar opposite. To be fair, he did say that it wouldn't be his best track. And in the end, he unfortunately is paying the price for his own actions out on track and obviously with his own spin on lap 1.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so tough in this division as well because
his
you don't get...
Wouter and Nathan again, sorry to cut you off. He is catching down the straight. Has he got ERS this time though? Wouter I should say, doesn't want to risk the move. Actually, Nathan a bit deep in towards turn 2. This could now let Wouter in through the S section potentially. And he's right close to the rear wing there of Nathan, but Nathan just pulls away, filming through the corners. Wouter maybe going more streamlined speed setup rather than cornering setup. Through the corners, though, he does catch. So Wouter then 8th, not getting the job done. What were you going to say? Sorry.
Yeah, the problem is you don't get a freebie here. You know, this is the other problem for perhaps the pace-wise. Pace can be a bit more disguised in lower divisions because the safety car can kind of rebalance things and give you a second life. Whereas if you mess up normally in the top tiers of League racing, you can't normally rely on that safety car.
Yeah, totally agree. Alp, by the way, is within a second now of Campbell, which is interesting. That's coming out of Spoon Curve. We are still following Rocco and... Rocco? Rocco's down in 16th. Wouter and Nathan as the ones we're on board with. 7th and 8th position currently out on track. And catching Gary as well. Gary has been on his own volition, obviously, because Nathan had that spin a few laps ago, and Nathan would have been, I think, within touching distance, possibly even past Yildirim and Rick if he didn't have that moment. And Nathan now was having to defend off Wouter. Wouter there in 8th position, doing a fantastic job, and maybe he looks very close this time around, and he's nearly in the wall! Nearly in the wall! I think he got away with it. Oh my god, what a save that is from Wouter! He literally, his front wing, right tail end plate, hit the pit lane entry. I do not know how he has escaped that with his life. Wouter there in 8th position. How on earth he is still in this race after that moment on this bump? Even though the bump's been removed on this game, apparently the last patch update has just brought the bump back as Wouter, Code Brown moment coming at the final corner.
Absolutely, that was absolutely wild. And look at this, Rocco is clear, like he's miles clear of someone like Verstappen, and he's right there with his app. So this is quite interesting. Rocco should have his app. He should actually have his app if he gets his wits about him.
He should, but in there in 14th position, he is going to be at the wrong at the receiving end, obviously, of what is to come later on in the race. But coming back to what you said a little bit earlier on, this track does have high tyre wear, and there are potentially punctures for the medium compound tyres, certainly, at the end of this race. Sadi, though, still leading the way. Campbell in second, Alp in third. By the way, Jensen came in the pit lane a couple of laps ago as well, as Selly stays out for now. Campbell is staying out, and Alp is in. Alp is into the pit lane from third position. I do not blame him at all for doing this. And the Turk-American into the pit lane. Yildirim follows him in. Rick follows him in. Gary is staying out. Nathan and Wouter, though, are into the pit lane. Medium compounded tyres are easily going to get to the end of the race. But for the likes of Verstappen, certainly for the likes of Gladbach, if he can get to the end of the race on those tyres, I don't know what, honestly, his reaction will be. He is going to be obviously further down the field, but Alp is out of the pit lane, and look at the clear air that Alp has come out in. He must be in, potentially, going back and forth between gaps, possibly 10 seconds worth of free air that he's got.
Yeah, shrewd. Good place to come out there. He was always going to be too far behind the guys that haven't pit yet, so he's not going to get held up in traffic. But the undercut, the one good thing about this track for the undercut is Sector 1 is a really, obviously, you're using your tyres a lot, so they warm up quicker than some other tracks. But he's still going to suffer this first lap. Be interesting to see how he compares to Selly and Campbell, who I imagine will come in. Lap 15 is probably about the sweet spot.
Yeah, they're coming through towards 130 are the leaders. Sally has certainly opened up the gap. It's 3.5, 3.6. He's definitely coming in the pit lane to try and respond. Campbell there in second. Maybe that gap is just creating a little bit of buffer in case Campbell gets undercut by Alp. That might be the case there for Sally's use of EOS. He's certainly actually staying out. Sally responds fast as that way. Don't know why he did that, to be honest. Now 4 seconds clear of Campbell. Campbell just can't keep up. And in the end, Izzat right on the back of Nathan, and J. Cole has run through 130R. J. Cole ran through 130R. Think he got caught in the inside curb. He has spun the car around, and has he got a rear left puncture? No, he hasn't. I think he's got away with it, certainly. But he had a spin, and just about Rick and Yildirim got through in that, as Montana says I'll have an obsession with Rocco. I'll give you what it is with Rocco. It's a love-hate relationship. There you go.
That was...
Oh, Gary side by side with Nathan! Coming out the pit lane, and there's Izzat to the inside line as well, trying to look towards turn number 2. And Izzat is going to be on the quicker tyre. He's going to have to risk this through the S section, surely. He cannot be held back by Gary. It's going to cost his own race, and the Singaporean is going to have to try and dice his way through. Maybe around the outside of turn number 6. We've seen this before with Chapelletti in the past in Division 1 of LOE. But in the end, Izzat can't pull it off. Maybe to the inside line now, coming out of Dunlop curve, into all the Degners, not quite. Maybe into the hairpin. That'll be his best opportunity, I think. Picks up a warning, I think, on the right-hand side there. And now, Wouter all of a sudden, all over the back of Izzat. The Williams are certainly beginning to come into play, but Gary gets on his EOS, pulls away up the hill, in towards the hairpin, and in the end, they remain as they are.
Yeah, he just couldn't quite get it down, could he? Couldn't quite get the power down around the outside there. And then it's always around Dunlop, going to just squeeze in. As Selly and Campbell do pits, they are in. So that is everyone. Their mandatory pit stop.
And Sally got held up in the pit lane there slightly by Campbell. That was noticeable, certainly on my screen. Campbell came into his pit box and Sally's car just slowed down. I think it cost him about half a second. It's fine. Campbell, though, was gained as a result of that. And Alp is coming out literally side by side. And in fact, Alp's going to be ahead. Alp is ahead of Campbell. That is perfect from Alp's perspective. And he could be outside of a second. In fact, he is going to be outside of a second. So Campbell there has gone 2 laps later than Alp. And Alp, I think, had a huge mistake there.
Oh, how he held that car. Every week he does it, doesn't he? He's going to have to call him Houdini, I think, because every week he looks like his race is about to be over in 5 seconds. And it's not, but he's catching up. The mad thing is, without that mistake, he'd have caught Selly quite significantly. So those tyres are obviously warmed up, but Campbell will be praying he can keep him within a second.
Yeah, definitely. So Campbell, I think, if it wasn't for that mistake, I think Alp would have been gone outside of a second. That mistake has cost Alp. It's 3.1 seconds, and as I say, I think that gap was done more out of sufferance, just from Sully, just to get a little bit of time, a little bit extra time to play with. In case I make a mistake, he can have an extra half a second, an extra second, whatever he gained, obviously, on that fastest lap attempt, to obviously gain on Alp and on Campbell once the pit stops came. And that's exactly what's happened, because Alp's there in second, Campbell there in third. They're both on similar ERS ranges at this stage. Campbell on 24%, Alp there on 20% coming in toward 130R. But now the Scotsman has got to try and find something. He has got to have his haggis if he wants to try and get this second position out on track. He knows he's capable. I know he's capable. You know he's capable, Mark. And Campbell and Alp for second position looks to be in the main battle out on track, as well as Izzat and Gary coming through Castle Triangle. I think Gary made a mistake there sliding. Izzat's going to try maybe down in towards turn number 1, but he hasn't got the speed down the straight, and Izzat in the end is not going to get the job done. Packer though might on the back of Rocco, and Rocco, that is good from his perspective short term to go on a set of hards. Longer term though, he's just going to be eaten up by the pack, and that's exactly being proven by Packer, who gets the job done in 11th, and Rocco makes a slight mistake by coming out of turn number 2.
But his race will come back in, because those mediums will start to hurt, and he'll know how that feels, because that was him a few laps ago. So it's interesting. With Campbell, I don't think Campbell's in any rush here. He's got a straight line advantage. If you notice it going down the back straight, definitely running lower wings than Alp. And it reminds me a little bit like of a nature film I saw on the Discovery Channel the other week, which was where wolves, they sometimes what they'll do, they'll just chomp their legs of their prey, and then they'll wait for them to die safely from a distance. And I think this is what Campbell's going to do. He's just going to hang around at the back, knowing he's got a straight line advantage, build the ERS, build on the 2-lap tyre advantage, and then we'll see the Wolves come back for a feast on about lap 25. If he doesn't make a mistake, which is easier said than done.
Basically, what we're saying there is Campbell. Hopefully, he's got sharp teeth because that AlphaTauri, I think, is going to be eaten up by the Ferrari. That's what I think we're saying. Certainly, with that suffering, I don't know what that was. Honestly, he's going to be left to eat and die. Basically, is what we're saying about Alp potentially in terms of the strategy call.
Yeah, basically what they do. They don't risk getting in a scrap with the animal they're trying to kill.
Yeah.
You know, they run away from it. You know, there's no point in potentially hurting himself. And this is what I think Campbell's going to do. He's not going to try and go for an all-out war attack down through 130R a la Rocco. I think he's just going to sit behind and just wait for nature to do its own work. I think.
Yeah, nature can run its course, I think. And hopefully on this course in Suzuka, Campbell can catch Alp for this second position out on track. Charlie as well, saying in the comment section, Ooh. I think with everyone's brain fried is the Alfa Romeo of J Colours round coming out of turn number 1. The brain frying, I think, has continued there, because Charlie certainly said in the comments, my brain processed none of that. Jesus Christ.
Jaco and Rick are very interesting. They're like one up, one down. They're really strange as a team because Jaco had a great kind of pace, I think, in the first race, and now it's Rick's turn. You never see them in the same place. They're the opposite ends of the grids. It feels like every race.
Campbell now right on the back of Alp again. He's in no hurry to get this move done. But if I was in his pace and I was obviously saving up that ERS, I would use it now, coming down the straight, maybe get the move, maybe pull it outside of a second. He has got 2 laps younger tyres than Alp as well. So this is going to be on his side, also on his side as well. Potentially a move that's going to happen further down the field again is Izzat and Gary. This is the battle to watch out for further down the field, 7th and 8th position. But the Red Bull currently holding on the Williams. Just from Izzat's perspective, I think he needs to save a little bit, maybe lift and coast through a couple of corners, save an extra bit of ERS. Gary, to be fair, has got less ERS than him, but at what cost? Because Izzat can use up his ERS and then not catch. So he's got to try and think of something. Maybe just, as I say, lifting, coasting through the corners, gain that extra 5% of ERS, and then that extra 5% will come in, and then he'll be quick as a flash down the straight and obviously trying to get the job done. As he uses a bit, actually, coming out of the Dunlop curve, just to try and get back within 6/10 of a second, which is slipstream range around here as well. 8/10 of a second is normally borderline slipstream, but I'd say 6/10 of a second is slipstream range around here, and Izzat is doing well to stay on the back, of course, of Gary in for that 7th position. Sally, by the way, leader update, 5.8 seconds clear, pretty much as I said, as I expected it to go. Sally just absolutely dominating out on track. This is looking very, very good from his perspective. Obviously he is much quicker than Alp, obviously much quicker than Campbell. That first lap was absolutely crucial. The first 8 laps, I think, were absolutely crucial in terms of his race, stamping his authority on the rest of the field, and he's not going to look back unless it's a late safety car and it causes a bit of carnage. Selly, so far, is coming back to his rightful best, and of course, last week, he had a weird glitch, out of the race, retired, and now coming back to absolute bouncing form here in Japan.
Yeah. I tell you, about what I'm keeping an eye on here is Rick and Nathan. Nathan's actually clawed, as I say that, he's lost the 10th, but he's clawing Rick back, and Rick seems to be not loving these mediums as much, as is Jordan. Seems to be struggling a bit more on the mediums compared to the hards, because Nathan is actually making inroads.
Yeah, he is, and Nathan is a second behind Rick. He's doing a fantastic job at this stage in the race. Rick is holding his own, though, against Yildirim, and in the end, unfortunately, one Turk is going to outdo my prediction. And in fact, actually, I've got Campbell and Sully in the wrong way around anyway, so top 3 probably not going to be on, but I am very close. Very, very close for top 3. There is a yellow flag, and that is Pease round out of 10th position. So Pease round out of 10th has dropped it by himself and has lost his front wing as well. Could cause a VSC. I think he's going to get the car back going again. Normally, you don't get a safety car for a spin round there. And in the end, he's gone off into the gravel, has no control of that car at all. But that Haas is certainly looking a bit more streamlined now. He's down there in 14th.
Yeah, not a good day at the office for him, and my heart goes out to Jensen, who would have seen a car come to a stop and didn't get the safety car he needed.
Doesn't indeed. Campbell, by the way, is on the back of Alp. This is the move for second position now. Going Alp though down the straight, trying to burn his ERS. Here comes Campbell to the outside line, in towards turn 1. Gonna have to risk it the hard way. In the end, the hard way proves to be the easy way. Round the outside of turn number 2, gets the job done. Beautiful stuff by Campbell. That's racing right there. He needed to pull that one off, and Campbell through and he's into second, taking the fight to Alp. Couldn't sit for any longer than he needed to behind Alp. Alp in the end has got much more tyre wear compared to Campbell. Campbell on about 10% less, I think, at this stage compared to Alp. Now he tries to make a break for it. Now he has to try his P's as retired into the pit lane. He is out of the race, but Campbell there through and he's into second. That was absolutely picture perfect, crisp as you like from Campbell.
Yeah, from both of them. You know, Alp was very respectful there as well, which is nice to see. So we don't always see it at some of the more higher ends of league racing. Not just LOE, but any league. And yeah, that was good. That was, yeah, what you want to see.
Yeah, definitely what you want to see. Indeed, Renz as well saying in the chat, Campbell with a Kimi. Yeah, that was pretty much Kimi Raikkonen, Fernando Alonso-esque, I think. Was it? Or was it Fisichella? In 2003, I'm tempted to say. Yeah. It was Kimi Raikkonen.
Yeah, I think it might have been Fisichella actually. Now you say it. It's Rick. Rick is using. Rick does fancy this for dual bream. I think he's got his eye on fourth, and he is keeping Nathan at bay. But it's really down to those three. I don't want to see anything happen to the top three because they've all driven phenomenally. But do you know what? Alp's coming back at Campbell down in towards turn number 1. We're going to see a repeat once again. It is like Fisichella and Raikkonen, and this time Alp tries to go around the outside. In the end, hung out to dry. Campbell gets on the inside curve out of turn number 1. Alp's on the inside line, gets the job back done. Brilliant racing between them both. Alp there in second, Campbell in third. This night might not be for the race win, but this is an absolute insane battle. Shades of 2003 here in Japan. Alp into second, Campbell there in third, and in the end, Alp into second. Fights that back very grimly, but at what cost? Because he's got 20% ERS now, differentiation to Campbell, who's right in behind. That is just brilliant. I have a feeling we're going to see a couple more times of this, and I'm looking forward to it. But you know, I hope nothing happens to any of the front three because they've all deserved the podium. But boy, it'd be a bit spicy if something did happen to one of them, wouldn't it? Because then all of a sudden you've got Jordan, Rick, and Nathan fighting it out for a podium. Sally, to be honest, he looks absolutely easy as Verstappen's been overtaken. I think into the hairpin there. Slash has got the job done on the extra Degner 2 into the hairpin to Slash, and he's into 12th, into the point as well. Verstappen there in 13th. Sally, though, burning is up his ERS. He's 7 seconds clear. Unless he makes a mistake and unless he loses 10 seconds worth of time, he is going to be wrapping up this race win, and he could be putting one hand on the championship right now. But round number 3 between Alp and Campbell about to begin. Coming through the Casio Triangle once again through the final corner. Campbell this time though, not on the ERS. Doesn't want to go for the move, and I think he is just going to sit there, wait, and I think if I was Campbell, I'd make it penultimate lap of the race and then try and pull away a second. Yeah, absolutely. And just Selly's top line speed is nowhere near Campbell's. I think Selly and Alp are running a very similar setup. Very funny. He's just so smooth through the corners. Just looks absolutely on rails. Well, that's what happens when you've got Montana sorting out your setups in the background. Yeah. But he's doing a phenomenal job, and honestly, this has looked... I normally say drivers have looked dominant in their races, but this is next level dominance. This is potential superstar dominance that we are seeing from Sadie. This is career defining, I think, this performance tonight, honestly. I want to give a bit of props here to this man, Jensen, who is looking for a move. He didn't quit. He can't quite get it. Oh, he does! The inside 100 turn number 2. Shocks Gladbach. Gets the job done. 12 up old hards might just come into play. Gladbach side by side with him through the S section. In the end, Jensen pulls that off. And that is Gladbach actually off into the gravel as well. Has a mistake, I think, on the curb rather than anything. There was no contact there, certainly from my perspective. But Jensen through, he's into 16th. Gladbach into 17th. And a battle for the wooden spoon, I think, has finally been decided. Oh, in fact, actually, Gladbach's got a puncture front right. Oh, no, he doesn't. Does he? No, he does. He's got a puncture front right. Oh wow, maybe that's what happened. Wow, that's bizarre. It's funny because Campbell and Alp had the same situation as Campbell was having a look at him. I don't think he's not going for it. Same situation through that corner. The difference was Campbell backed out. I think if Gladbach did back out, he would have been all right. I appreciate he's got basically 3 working wheels at this point, but so it wouldn't have mattered either way. But yeah. just a difference of approach.
Yeah, slight difference of approach, definitely. Jensen there, 30th and 16th, though. As I say, it could have been anything. I think it was more right on the curb, and he obviously spun, and that's what the snap caused off into the gravel. That puncture caused, of course, that. And I did say it, he was on 15-lap all mediums, and they weren't going to get to the end of the race. They could only last 10, 11. Sometimes it could only last 11 laps around here. But normally they can last around 14, 15 laps. So I'm very surprised actually that Gladbach hasn't managed to save his tyres towards the end of the race. But in the end, this battle for second is really hotting up. There's nothing really happening further down the field. Nathan has gained though on Rick for 5th position. Rick there in 5th is doing a good job on the back of Yildirim. That has stayed quite stagnant as Gladbach retires into the pit lane. I do not blame him at all with that puncture. Why continue on? Pease has also left the session as well. But Campbell on the back of Alp. Round 3, it was 2005, I think that Ren's mentioned. Thank you very much. I knew it was in the 2000s, didn't know what year it was. 2005, though, James Allen's famous commentary. Maybe another famous James commentary coming in here as well, as now Selly leads the way by 8 seconds. Campbell, though, is going to have to save up his ERS now for a final lap assault, potentially on the back of Alp. May not even wait that long, because look at him, to the outside line at turn number 1 once again, and in the end he forced off completely by himself there. Rather than anything, that's his own doing for running around the outside, and in the end, that assault is going to come on the final lap of the race. Alpes had to use up his battery as well. Campbell, though, is better off. He's 4%, 5% more than Alp at this stage. But Campbell, a very rare mistake from Campbell and out of turn number 1.
He went back to the prey whilst it was still twitching around, unfortunately. I think this has got to be the next lap. Otherwise, he might end up being the one that gets eaten for dinner.
J. Cole, by the way, is into the pit lane. I think that might be a fastest lap attempt potentially from the Alfa Romeo, trying to steal that fastest lap away from Sally with a 1:30.4. J. Cole's fastest, 31.7, so it might actually be possible. He's only 1.3 seconds off fastest lap, and tyre difference probably around 2 seconds. So J. Cole, in theory, should be there towards the end of the race and should get that fastest lap if he is coming out on the lead lap, which he is. So he is going to get that fastest lap attempt, potentially. Campbell, though, using up his ERS, actually in towards 1:30. Oh, Alp already on the ERS, but he's actually not used any. Campbell is having to try and go for this and maybe realise, is Alp's rear right going, potentially? His front right's also looking like it's quite blistering as well. Alp's tyres might be in trouble here, and Campbell sniffs blood on the back, in towards the final corner, on the run to the line, the final lap of the race about to begin, but Alp in the end, extra ERS usage is just coming into play, and Alp, I think, is going to keep it in towards turn number 1, and in the end, that mistake from Campbell, absolutely costly. He's got other chances, obviously, on this lap, but Campbell needs to have a masterclass in this final lap if he's to come back as his teammate Nathan right on the back of Rick towards turn 2.
Ooh, slight contact. Both of them had a little moment there. And I'll tell you what, they need to be careful. It's unfortunate. I think Rick, I fancied him to make a move on Yildirim. Last lap's not going to happen now, as Yildirim is going to just sail off. But this is a battle for 5th, I think.
Yeah, battle for 5th and battle for 2nd, really developing out on track as well. Yildirim now going for 4th. Campbell might have a move in toward the hairpin. Doesn't risk getting into the hairpin. Might get the better switchback though on the exit. Might run side by side in towards Spoon Curve. That is a potential move that could happen. He's on the ERS and he's desperately trying to use it up. But in the end, Campbell's got no response. Alp has saved more ERS and Alp is saving just that little bit more. And Alp in the end, I think, could come out on top in 2nd. Campbell again a bit wide coming out of Spoon. Selly in the end though, coming out the final couple of corners, will win the race. In the end though, this battle for 2nd still holding up, and Alp in the end, just with that extra ERS, begins to just tow away in towards 1:30. Campbell's still within DRS range. He's not going to come from that far back, surely, to get the job done. Through the final corner though, Selly takes the win here in Japan in utter domination, and in the end, Alp is having to fend off Campbell all the way to the line, coming through Casio Triangle, and Alp finishes in 2nd, weathers the storm. Another lap, it might have been different. Campbell there in 3rd, Yildirim there in 4th is hanging on as well for Grim Life. Rick there in 5th, also hanging on for Grim Life with his tyres. He's there in 5th. Nathan there in 6th. Gary in the end in 7th. 1 position shy of his 8th position that I predicted. Terrible behaviour from Gary. I was actually going to say 7th as well, which is even worse. Rocco there does get points as well, and that's a whole compound tyres. Drove well in the second half of the race. Of course, after that weird strategy call to come in early onto that compound tyre. But in the end, Sally takes the win. Alp in second, Campbell there in third. Montana saying in the chat, how did Campbell bottle it so hard with more ERS and way fresher tyres? In the end, he made a mistake out of turn number 1, basically off camber through turn number 1. He locked up, I think, in the middle of the corner, forced out wide, nearly across over to the outside curb, and unfortunately for him, he finishes out in P3, and that was the mistake that completely cost him in that race, as J. Cole sneaks the fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, I think what also cost him, I think he went for it a lap too early. And then when the move didn't happen, he'd used the errors that if he'd have saved, he would have closed up to the back of him anyway. And then the difference would have been, he would have had about 35% rather than 5.
Yeah, definitely so. And Osama bin Rocco, by the way, got Driver of the Day awarded by the in-game fans. In the end, though, just one man that sums up this race, and it's this man here. It is Sully to the top step of the podium. And Mark, honestly, in my 10 years of league racing, I have seen dominant performances in my lifetime. That is probably up there with the most dominant performance I think I've ever seen in league racing. That was absolutely class from Sully. Different league today. That man, honestly, right there, if he does that every single race for the rest of the season, he's going to go right to the top.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was stunning, to be fair. And like I say, I practiced with Campbell, who come third there earlier, and he was, to think someone could be half a second a lap quicker than that is bizarre to me. Like, absolutely fair play.
A different world. It's like Campbell and Alp just entered the shadow realm, and Sully was just gone through a black hole. That was literally utter domination from Sully's perspective. He takes the win from Alp in second, Campbell there in third. They drove their heart out. They had a really fantastic battle. Shades of 2005, Fisichella and Raikkonen with their battle for second and third. Yildirim there in fourth, Rick there in fifth, Nathan in sixth, Gary in the end in seventh. Disgusting behaviour. He should have finished in P8. Wouter there in eighth instead. Izza in ninth. Rocco ran off the top 10. Did pick up a penalty as well. Rocco in 11th. Slash there in 12th. Sorry, Izzard, I should say, picked up a penalty. Packer also with a penalty. Slash there in 12th, the final point scorer. His actual, maybe first points of the season as well, which is good from his perspective. Verstappen 13th, Dari 14th. Jensen didn't give up there in 15th. J. Cole did sneak that fastest lap of the race by a good second nearly in the end. 29.9 from his perspective. Gladbach, of course, retiring 3 laps from the end. Pease and Kriko early on out of the race. No VSCs, no safety cars, no fuss here in Japan. Sully out on top in just absolute different league sort of driving.
Yeah, unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I'm going to, as last week, invite the crew in, if that's okay, and then I'm going to have to make my way to just sort out bedtime and all sorts of those wonderful real life things before I do my race. So I will invite everyone in, and then I will allow you to pass on my congrats, because that was an unbelievable performance.
Yeah, it was. It was definitely an unbelievable performance from Sully and Alp, and Campbell, obviously, as I say, shades of 2005, took it all the way back 15, 16 years ago in terms of the racing. Fantastic stuff from their perspective. I know my maths was wrong with that. About 18 years, in fact, between Alp and Campbell, 2005 to 2023. But Alp and Campbell, honestly, if that straight was a little bit longer, Campbell could have potentially got him maybe in towards turn 1 if it was a lap longer. But if it's buts and maybes, it was still a fantastic battle from them both. And, as I say, shades of 2005 with that battle. As for now, we can speak, of course, to the man. And in fact, actually, before we go into the interviews, we'll get Mark's final word on that race. And, of course, look forward to next week, which I believe is Abu Dhabi next week.
Oof. Okay. Yeah, no, it's just yeah, like I say, like we said, it's one of the most dominant performances. Make sure you ask Campbell how on earth he managed to bottle that with more ERS, and if he regrets it after it in lap 26. But I'm going to head out, and well done to all three of you.
No worries at all. Thank you so much, Mark, for commentating alongside me. Sully, though, is the man who finished in P1, and Sully, that was just different league. That was, honestly, in 10 years of league racing, that was probably one of the most dominant performances I think I've ever seen. Talk us through it, because it looked dominant from your perspective.
First of all, GG to Campbell and Alp. Yeah, I don't know. I think also it was my best league race performance I've ever had in 5 years league racing. I have no words about this race.
it just looked different world, honestly. It just looked different world out there on track. And for Alban Campbell to be half a second slower per lap, every single lap around, you were just pulling away, pulling away. You saved up that ERS as well, then you pulled away again just before the pit stops. It was just, honestly, F1 esports level sort of driving, and I'm honestly being serious. It was just absolutely different class.
After the disappointing weekend last week, I know that I have to win this race, so I practicing, and I think it paid out today.
It definitely paid out, and I'm going to go into the if, buts and maybes, but if there was a safety car or a VSC, do you think you would have had a bit of pressure from Alban Campbell and behind?
Yes, I think when Alp have a good start, he catch me into the first corner because I had a really bad start, but yeah, when he was the first car in the first corner, it would be difficult.
Yeah, unfortunately for them, they just couldn't keep up at the end of the day. It was just, honestly, different world. And of course, you are back consistently on form. You take the championship lead as well, I think, into next week in Abu Dhabi. And is Abu Dhabi one of the stronger tracks for you? Or is that just another track where I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just dominate by another 8.5 seconds?
I think Abu Dhabi would be a close race because there's so many straights, no corners, so I think it'd be close, but yeah, we will see. I think I can win this.
You think you can win? I hope you can win, because honestly, you, my friend, are destined completely for the top after that drive. Go and enjoy Evelyn.
Thank you.
Very welcome indeed. And we now speak to the man who finished in P2 and took us all the way back to 2005 with the battle with Campbell. Between Alp and Campbell, of course, it is Mr. Alp. And Alp, in second position, you must be still very happy, considering you had to fend off Campbell in those final 3 laps.
Oh no, that was intense and fun, but overall actually kind of disappointed. Especially like Sully was different gravy today. I don't know what to say about that. Respect. And yeah, I don't know, P2 back-to-back, it's okay, but I think I have more in me, and I want to show that in the next races.
Yeah, I really hope so, because I think, honestly, as I said there to Sally, you were half a second, I think, a lap consistently slower every single lap around than Sally. So, what was your thinking going through the race? Were you honestly thinking, that Bolt is absolutely gone, there's no way I'm going to catch him?
I don't think on raw pace I was off by that much on the hards. I mean, he was saving a lot more ERS than me, granted, but like the thing is with my starts, when I drop so much to make up for that, I have to pit early for mediums. I think you can see a pattern developing for me, and yeah, when I do that in the second stint, I'm just hampered, and like that's where I lost a lot of time. But I don't know if I'm on a similar strategy and like up there from the very beginning of the race. I think I can keep him honest.
Yeah, definitely. So, and the final question before I ask you about, of course, Abu Dhabi, what was that battle with Campbell like? Because you said it was intense there. It was Raikkonen Fisichella-esque 2005, I think.
Yeah, very respectful, always with Campbell. Like, I didn't expect anything else, and just very enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I think.
Go on.
Yeah, I had a moment at the exit of the pits where Sally and Campbell were pitting that lap. I don't know if you guys saw it, but like I was completely sideways on the grass at the exit of turn 1, and I don't know. But when you said intense, that moment just came to my mind like that.
It was, yeah, but we caught that on stream as well. I think it was on the exit of turn number 2 where you got caught on the grass and you pretty much slid your way coming through that corner. And Campbell in the end, I think I said it in commentary as well, you would have been outside of a second to Campbell if you didn't make that mistake.
Yeah. Definitely. I think that made it more difficult for me because that meant he could like stay within the DRS when his tires were warm. But we had a very fun battle, and I'm very happy to beat him because he's a very good driver. And yeah.
Yeah, definitely so. And obviously, final question from me: Abu Dhabi next week should be a much closer track, I hope, for racing. Otherwise, Sally's just going to run away with it again. What are your feelings going into Abu Dhabi? Is it a track that you like?
The old layout, yes. The new layout, I'm not so sure. It just seems very bumpy, but I don't know. I need to drive it first because I haven't done that. But yeah, I think more important than the track is practicing the starts, and I don't know. I'll look into that.
Yeah, take it from the horse's mouth, honestly. The bumps around Abu Dhabi are absolutely vile. They can cost you a race, quite literally, on this track. And obviously with the changed layout as well, it should promote overtaking. Hopefully we do get that. Hopefully we do get another battle between you and Campbell next week as well. But Alp, go and enjoy evening. Or go and enjoy your afternoon, I should say.
Always the same lines. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, see you.
Very welcome indeed. We can speak to the man who finished in P3 as well. It is Mr. Kevio Campbell. And Campbell, in the end, P3, I think, was probably one of the best positions I think he could have hoped for, given the circumstances.
I would have liked second. First was like miles up the road. There was no chance, but I feel like I could have had a shot at second. But through too high wings, it seems to be the story of my season so far is just I'm running too high wings. I have to burn more battery to stick with guys on the straights, and I'm not able to make it up in the corners when following the dirty air. And it's just a downward spiral, really. Also, I gave it the go at the end to try and get it back, but I don't know why, but I just couldn't. The last chicane, Alp was gaining just enough on top of the straight line speed to keep it ahead, which is fair play by him. But yeah, I just couldn't hook up the last chicane all race, so that's something on my half I need to try and sort if I was going to try and get P2 tonight.
Yeah, and when you did get that chicane, obviously correct, you were right on the back of Alp running down and towards turn number 1. As I mentioned with there, Raikkonen and Fisichella Eskin towards 2005, and you got the move done around the outside, and then same lap, literally last lap later, he got the move right around the outside of you again. Talk us through that, because it was very, very consistent battling between you both.
Yeah, it was very respectful. Like I thought, to be honest with you, I thought I would be okay, and at least the lap after the overtake to not have to use all my battery to defend. But yeah, Alp managed to follow closely, and yeah, he managed to follow closely and get me back right the next lap with his low wings. And I guess a little bit of battery was needed as well, but it would be easier, maybe made it easier because of his low downforce setup. But it was fun. It was a fun battle. It was a nice move, and then I got mugged off myself a lap later, so I guess it evens itself out.
It does even itself out. And final question, obviously, before we come to your thoughts about Abu Dhabi. Talk us through that mistake. Was it just a slight lack of concentration, or was it just like you lost the steering mid-corner and you had to turn basically left to go right?
When do you mean? When I've tried to get back past the second time, or?
Back past the second time, yeah. I think you were like 2 tenths behind him. Yeah,
just too much entry speed into the first corner. Tried to pin it around the outside. I wasn't fully alongside. I had to try something. Get the car alongside to, try and argue for position. It wasn't enough. I tried. I gave it all I could, but yeah. I think moral of the story and the season so far is run low wings, run low downforce, go quicker in a straight line.
Yeah, I think it's a learning experience for everyone out on track, certainly, especially when it comes to setups. The new setups, of course, have been in the game, 7-8 months now, and still causes problems, still causes drivers to obviously run higher wings than necessary, and Campbell, absolutely the simple case, I think, there, run lower wings, and hopefully more progression will come, I think, as we go through the season. But Abu Dhabi, of course, next week, it is a track that you were very fond of course, in the past. Talk us through your thoughts about Abu Dhabi.
The new layout I prefer a lot more than the last one. The chicanes before they were getting progressively worse each year with the way that the sausage cabs threw the car about. And also last season I had a good drive. I will say it was showing a really good pace for how it felt on my side. So I hope to do something good next week, but I'll probably need to take last season's setup and take about 10 off both of the wings to try and be competitive in a straight line. So I'll need to adjust to that and yeah, hopefully not get mugged off again with someone in older tyres.
Yeah, hopefully it is the story of your season, I think, just to run higher wings than necessary. Hopefully lower wings might suit you again next week in Abu Dhabi. Go and enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Very welcome indeed. And that rounds us up very nicely, of course, for LOE Division 1 in perfect timing, of course, because Division 2 and Division 4 are going to be online in around 14 minutes time. Oh, no. Actually, that's my maths wrong. 17 minutes time, 10 past 8 UK time. It is going to be, of course, for Division 2 and Division 4. And you have got, of course, Mr. J. Cole and Mr. Killer, who was actually away. So I think there is another commentator in alongside him in Division 2. I think it might be Felipe alongside him, if I'm not mistaken, unless he's driving there. And Division 4, of course, it is Mr. Packer and Mr. Verstappen taking to the action, of course, as well. For Division 4, we're going to be back with you, of course, next week in Abu Dhabi, which, of course, is normally a season finale track. Not this time around, round 4 of the championship. We literally go from here to there, pretty much like the real F1 2023 calendar coming forward this season, of course. But I really hope you enjoyed the stream if you did, and if you did enjoy the battling, of course, out on track, like, comment, subscribe, tick that notification bell, of course, if you're brand new. F1 completely back on track in terms of driving standards as well. Cannot wait for what's to happen, of course, in Abu Dhabi moving forward. Thank you to Mr. Mark Eldridge as well. Oh, Mark Aldridge for joining me in the commentary box, of course, as always. He's going to be back, I'm sure, alongside me next week as well. And we are going to end it off here so you can get a cup of tea, maybe a biscuit or two, maybe a shower, and then watch Division 2 in about 15 minutes time, just like I'm going to be doing very soon indeed as well. But thank you so much for watching, and until next time in LOE Division 1, goodbye.